In 1945, I held in my hands a piece of plutonium that would destroy a city. 6 kilograms of metal, worn to the touch. What made it so dangerous was not chemistry. It was not even nuclear physics in the ordinary sense. It was time. Specifically, it was the relationship between time, mass, and energy that Einstein had discovered 40 years earlier. The same relationship that makes time stop at light speed. The same relationship that converts mass into the energy of nuclear explosions. Most people think these are separate ideas. Relativity over here, nuclear weapons over there. They are the same idea. And understanding why time stops at light speed is understanding why the atomic bomb works. Let me show you the connection that haunted me for decades. Here is something that should disturb you. If you could travel at the speed of light, time would stop completely. A photon crossing the universe experiences no time at all. From its perspective, the moment of emission and the moment of absorption are the same instant. This is not a thought experiment. It is measurable physics. We observe it constantly. Muons are particles created when cosmic rays hit the upper atmosphere. They have a half-life of 2.2 microseconds. At the speed they travel, they should decay long before reaching the ground. Most should never arrive. But they do arrive, in enormous numbers. Why? Because from our perspective, their clocks run slow. A muon traveling at 99.5% of light speed experiences time at roughly 1/10 the rate we do. Its 2.2 microseconds stretches to over 20 microseconds in our reference frame. The muon does not know this. From its perspective, it lives exactly 2.2 microseconds. But during that time, it crosses a distance that should have taken 10 times longer. Time dilation is real. It is measured in particle accelerators, in GPS satellites, in atomic clocks flown around the world. The equations work. The predictions match experiment to extraordinary precision. But the equations lead somewhere strange. As velocity approaches the speed of light, the time dilation factor approaches infinity. At exactly light speed, time stops. What does that mean? And what does it have to do with nuclear weapons? Einstein's equation E equals mc squared connects mass and energy. Everyone knows this equation. Few understand what it actually says. It says that mass is a form of energy. Not that mass can be converted to energy as if they were different currencies. Mass is energy. They are the same thing, measured in different units. The conversion factor is c squared. The speed of light, squared. Approximately 9 times 10 to the 16 in metric units. This is why nuclear weapons release so much energy from so little mass. 1 kilogram of matter, fully converted, yields the energy of 21 megatons of TNT. In the Trinity test, roughly 1 gram of matter converted to energy. 1 gram out of 6 kilograms of plutonium. Less than 0.02%. That 1 gram produced an explosion equivalent to 21,000 tons of chemical explosive. The same equation that stops time at light speed created the bomb. This is not coincidence. They are mathematically identical. Let me show you the connection precisely. The equation E equals mc squared is actually the simplified version. The full equation is E squared equals pc squared plus mc squared squared, where E is total energy, P is momentum, m is rest mass, and c is the speed of light. For a particle at rest, momentum is zero. The equation reduces to E equals mc squared. For a particle in motion, energy increases with momentum. Now consider what happens as a particle approaches light speed. At low velocities, kinetic energy is approximately 1/2 mv squared. Double the velocity, quadruple the energy. This is Newtonian mechanics. It works fine for everyday speeds. But as velocity increases, something changes. The energy required for each additional increment of speed grows, not linearly, exponentially. At 50% of light speed, a particle has about 15% more energy than Newton would predict. At 90% of light speed, about 130% more. At 99% of light speed, over 600% more. At 99.9% of light speed, over 2,000% more. The pattern continues without limit. As velocity approaches c, the energy required approaches infinity. This is the same physics that dilates time. The Lorentz factor gamma appears in both equations. Gamma is equal to 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared. Time dilation. T prime equals T over gamma. Energy, E equals gamma mc squared. As V approaches C, gamma approaches infinity. Time slows toward zero. Energy increases toward infinity. They are the same phenomenon. In the Manhattan Project, we use this physics constantly. When a uranium-235 nucleus absorbs a neutron and fissions, the fragments fly apart at roughly 3% of light speed. This is fast enough that relativistic corrections matter for precise calculations. More importantly, the binding energy that holds the nucleus together is described by E equals mc squared. The mass of a uranium-235 nucleus is slightly less than the mass of its component protons and neutrons measured separately. This mass deficit multiplied by c squared equals the binding energy. When the nucleus splits, some of this binding energy is released. The products have slightly less total mass than the original nucleus plus neutron. The missing mass appears as kinetic energy of the fragments, as gamma rays, as the energy that destroys cities. We calculated bomb yields by calculating mass deficits. The physics of time dilation and the physics of nuclear weapons are the same physics. Here is the paradox that troubled me. Special relativity says the laws of physics are the same in all inertial reference frames. There is no absolute motion. There is no absolute rest. All uniform motion is relative. This seems democratic. No reference frame is privileged. But the speed of light is privileged. It is the same for all observers, regardless of their motion. How can both be true? The resolution requires abandoning something intuitive, absolute time. Different observers in relative motion do not agree on the order of events. They do not agree on how much time passes between events. They do not even agree on whether two events are simultaneous. This is not a measurement error. This is the structure of space-time. Consider two explosions, one in New York and one in Los Angeles, at what I measure to be the same instant. An observer moving east at high speed will measure the Los Angeles explosion happening first. An observer moving west will measure the New York explosion happening first. Neither is wrong. There is no fact of the matter about which happened first. Simultaneity is relative. This sounds like it should create paradoxes. If A happens before B for one observer, and B happens before A for another, could one event cause the other differently for different observers? No. Causality is preserved because the speed of light limits how fast information can travel. If event A could have caused event B by sending a signal at light speed or slower, then all observers agree that A happened first. The reordering only affects events that are too far apart in space and too close together in time for any signal to have connected them. The speed of light is not just a speed limit. It is the structure that makes causality coherent. Now I will tell you something that most physics accounts omit. The energy released in nuclear weapons does not come from mass disappearing. The total mass energy is conserved. What changes is the form. Before fission, the uranium nucleus has rest mass. After fission, the fragments have slightly less rest mass, but they are moving at high speed. Their kinetic energy, measured in mass equivalent units, makes up the difference. The total is the same. But rest mass has converted to kinetic energy. The kinetic energy eventually becomes thermal energy. The heat of the fireball, the blast wave, the destruction. This is subtle but important. E equals mc squared does not say mass disappears. It says mass and energy are equivalent. A hot object has more mass than the same object cold because thermal energy contributes to mass. The bomb works because nuclear binding energy is much larger than chemical binding energy, and because the conversion factor, c squared, is enormous. The physics is the same as chemistry. The scale is different by a factor of millions. At Los Alamos, I worked with physicists who understood this deeply. Hans Bethe calculated the nuclear reactions in stars and in bombs. Richard Feynman developed techniques for quantum electrodynamics that required special relativity throughout. Enrico Fermi built the first nuclear reactor using calculations that depended on relativistic kinematics of neutrons. We were not building a bomb in spite of special relativity. We were building a bomb because of special relativity. The theory told us how much energy was available. The theory told us how to release it. The same theory tells us why time stops at light speed. The same equations, the same physics. Let me be specific about what time stops means. A photon has zero rest mass. The equation E equals gamma mc squared seems to give zero for its energy. But photons have energy. Visible light, X-rays, gamma rays, all carry energy. The resolution. For massless particles, the equations work differently. Energy is E equals hf, where h is Planck's constant and f is frequency. The momentum is P equals E over c. Massless particles travel at exactly c. They cannot travel slower. They have no rest frame. You cannot ask, what does a photon experience in its own reference frame? Because there is no such frame. This is what time stops at light speed means. Not that photons experience frozen time. photons do not experience time at all. The concept does not apply. For massive particles approaching light speed, time dilation increases without limit. Their clocks slow relative to a stationary observer. In the limit as v approaches c, this dilation approaches infinity. No massive particle can reach c. The energy required is infinite. But massless particles cannot travel at any other speed. They are created at c and always travel at c. Here is where the physics becomes strange. In a reference frame moving at 99.99% of light speed, a clock runs at about 1/70th the rate of a stationary clock. A year in that frame corresponds to 70 years for a stationary observer. Cosmic ray muons demonstrate this. Accelerator particles demonstrate this. The physics is confirmed. Now extrapolate. At 99.9999% of C, the factor is about 700. At 99.999999%, about 7,000. Particles in the Large Hadron Collider reach 99.999991% of C. Their time dilation factor exceeds 7,000. 1 second of particle time corresponds to over 7,000 seconds of laboratory time. These particles have enormous energy, several trillion electron volts each. This energy is real. When they collide, they create showers of new particles, including particles heavier than protons, created from pure kinetic energy. E equals mc squared running backward, energy converting to mass. The connection to nuclear weapons is direct. In a fission bomb, mass converts to energy via E equals mc squared. In particle collisions, energy converts to mass via the same equation. The conversion factor is the same, c squared. The physics that makes time dilation possible is the physics that makes nuclear weapons possible. They are both consequences of the structure of space-time revealed by special relativity. I cannot separate my understanding of one from my understanding of the other. When I calculated bomb yields, I was using the same equations that describe time dilation. When I thought about the nature of time and space, I was using the same equations that described the bomb. After the war, I thought often about what we had done. I thought about the relationship between knowledge and consequence. We understood special relativity. We understood that mass and energy are equivalent. We understood how to release the binding energy of atomic nuclei. This understanding gave us weapons that could destroy cities. The same understanding tells us that time is not absolute, that the speed of light is a fundamental limit, that the structure of space-time is stranger than intuition suggests. Knowledge does not come in pieces. You cannot accept E equals mc squared and reject nuclear weapons. You cannot accept time dilation and reject mass energy equivalence. The physics is one physics. The equations are the same equations. Let me state precisely what special relativity tells us about time. First, time is not absolute. Different observers measure different time intervals between the same events. Neither is wrong. Second, moving clocks run slow. A clock in motion relative to you ticks slower than an identical clock at rest relative to you. This is time dilation. The factor is gamma is equals 1 over through 1 minus v squared squared c squared. Third, simultaneity is relative. Events that are simultaneous in one reference frame are not simultaneous in another. Fourth, the speed of light is the same for all observers. This is the foundational postulate. Everything else follows from it. Fifth, nothing with mass can reach light speed. The energy required is infinite. Sixth, massless particles travel at exactly light speed. They have no rest frame. They do not experience time. These are not interpretations. They are measured facts. Every prediction of special relativity has been confirmed experimentally. The theory works. The bomb worked because the theory works. 21 kilotons at Trinity, 15 kilotons at Hiroshima, 21 kilotons at Nagasaki, calculated using E equals mc squared, calculated using the same physics that describes time dilation. I cannot think about time dilation without thinking about the bomb. I cannot think about the bomb without thinking about time dilation. The physics is unified. The consequences are not separable. Here is the question I never resolved. Special relativity is beautiful physics. The postulates are simple. The mathematics is elegant. The predictions are precise. The same physics enables weapons of mass destruction. Is beauty morally neutral? Is elegance independent of consequence? I do not know. I spent decades thinking about this. I reached no conclusion. What I can tell you is this. The physics is real. Time dilation is real. Mass energy equivalence is real. Nuclear weapons are real. Understanding any of these requires understanding all of them. They are the same understanding. The speed of light is not merely fast. It is the structure of causality. It determines what can affect what. It determines the meaning of before and after. At light speed, time stops because the concepts of before and after become meaningless for a photon. A photon does not traverse space in time. It connects points in space-time directly along what we call a null geodesic. This is not metaphor. This is geometry. Space-time has a structure described by the metric tensor. Light follows paths where the space-time interval is zero. For such paths, there is no proper time, no experience, no duration. Massive particles follow different paths. Time passes along these paths. But as their velocity approaches c, the amount of proper time approaches zero. The speed of light is special because it is not really a speed. It is a conversion factor between space and time. It tells you how much space equals how much time in the four-dimensional structure of space-time. 1 meter of space equals 1 meter of space. 1 second of time equals 299,792,458 meters of space. This is what C means. The bomb exists because this conversion factor is real. E equals mc squared exists because space and time are unified. Time dilation exists because space and time are unified. These are the same fact, expressed in different ways. I understood this in 1945. I understand it still. The physics does not care about human categories. It does not separate interesting theory from practical application. It does not distinguish beautiful mathematics from destructive technology. The physics is what it is. Time stops at light speed. Mass equals energy. Nuclear weapons work. We discovered these facts. We cannot undiscover them. We can only decide what to do with the knowledge. That decision is not physics. It is human. And it remains, after 80 years, unresolved.